Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the RDFL Footy Show for another week. Back out on location today here at beautiful Bloomdale Oval in Diggers Rest. We've got the microphone out. There's a bit of wind around today with the outdoor shoot, so we thought we'd get the microphone out, get it out onto the streets again and bring the RDFL Footy Show to you. I'm Sean Kelly. Joining me once again, as always, Shaun and Yeendy. Welcome to the Footy Show, mate.
Thanks, mate. Always a pleasure to be here, and been a fantastic long weekend, although there's lots of footy going on, mate. You're down at Geelong for this week, watching some of the greatest young superstars in action.
Yeah, certainly did. Went down, had a look at the Vic Country versus Vic Metro game in the Under-18 National Championships. And, of course, speaking of Interleague, it's been a big weekend for junior Interleague, especially in the RDFL. The AFL Vic Junior Metropolitan Championships happening this weekend. You went down to Riddle before and had a look at how things were going. Talk us about how the RDFL teams have gone over the weekend.
Yeah, they've been doing all right. The results haven't been too favourable, but the kids have been having a really good crack and really good preparation there by all players and coaches involved. So shaping up to be really good, and a lot of improvement. So the program's been going on for a number of weeks now. Started at Trentham and has sort of progressed through nicely, and finished today here on the Monday over at Riddle, and there was games across Melbourne as well over the weekend and Macedon on Saturday.
Yeah, big weekend, of course. Always the long weekend is junior interleague time here in the RDFL. No senior footy this year for the first time in a few years on the Queen's birthday weekend. How's that been received around the traps?
I think it's been pretty positive. A lot of players have embraced the fact that they've been able to have a bit of a break, although many of them got to enjoy a break a couple of weeks back with the Interleague. So it's I don't know how players sort of go with the 4 or 5 weeks on, 1 week off, 2 weeks on, 1 week off, and then we'll have a bye. Well, buys will start coming up in a few weeks' time as well. So bit up and down, but I think they'll cope with it all right.
One of the advantages of having a 12-team comp this year as well, not having a team that's got double buys either side of these weeks either, so I suppose that helps out a little bit there. It's a bit easy to get the momentum up.
Yeah, definitely right there, and I guess when we look at the bye that will happen, it's more or less a split round. I think it's around 13 from memory, so it's still a few weeks away, and that'll when players all clubs resume, they'll be having a good run towards the finals.
They certainly will. Speaking of good runs, it's now time to start that mid-season stretch of the year that is always so important in footy terms. And here in the RDFL, it's round 8 being played this weekend. Starting on this very patch of turf that we're standing on right now, Yeendy, Diggers Rest taking on Rockbank.
Yeah, top versus bottom. You can't really say too much about that. Rockbank didn't have the best form last week. They lost by over 200 points against Riddle, which a bit disappointing from their point. And the Burrows have been kicking along very nicely, obviously undefeated. They had to, I think they placed Centrals a couple of weeks ago, and they had to fight very hard in the second half to break away. So should be a good outing for the Burrows, and hopefully Rockbank, they can at least put a few goals on the board. Yeah,
I think Diggers Rest should be too strong in this one. Pretty interesting game down the road in Sunbury at Eric Boardman Reserve. Sunbury Kangaroos taking on Macedon. This will be a pretty good game of footy.
Definitely a really, probably the game of the round, obviously, to watch by all standards. And the Cats have, doesn't matter how they're flying, they've always struggled when they've come up against the Kangaroos. So the Kangaroos, they losing by 9 goals to Wallen a few weeks back, and Macedon did the job against the Tigers in a pretty impressive performance. So it's the Cats, it's a big opportunity for them, but they need to be able to construct a win against the Kangaroos, who, as was mentioned before, have matched up very well against them for a long time.
And are a pretty good side this year as well. You're tipping in this one?
I'd probably have to say Macedon, more out of just to shake the things up in the competition, but I'd like to see the Kangaroos bounce back. They always do well on their home deck, very hard to beat.
A team that's come back into prominence in the last few weeks is the Broadford Footy Club. They're at home this weekend against Melton Centrals in a game that Broadford will start favourites in a win that could get them up back near the top 6.
Yeah, well, they're on a bit of a winning streak at the moment. I think this will be their 4th win in a row if they get the job done. It all started against Romsey and then a knock over Rupo, and I think they had another win in there as well. So they're doing extremely good. And Dean Howells and Skip Bray, geez, they're doing the right things at this point in time. It doesn't matter. I think they had sort of a slow start last year as well and still made it in the top 6, and they definitely showed that once you get in the top 6, anything can happen.
Certainly right about that, as Rupertswood and Lansfield are both hoping to find this weekend with that game between these two sides being played at Lansfield Park. And I reckon with the game at Lansfield Park, the Tigers might almost start as favourites. Yeah,
definitely. The Tigers showed some really good signs a few weeks ago against Macedon. We saw them in action. They played a good brand of footy. Rupertswood, well, they had the loss against Broadford. Very, very, very tough for them. And Kev Fitzgerald, they want to bounce back against that, and this will probably be, I think, probably one of the more important games of the round. If Broadford get the job done, then they're right back in the hunt. Ruperts Wood get the job done, they're right in the mix of the top 6.
Yeah, Lansfield, I've just got a feeling about them. I reckon that they could really be setting this one up. Ruperts Wood, it'll be interesting to see if that was a bit of a lapse against Broadford or if it's going to be somewhere more towards the norm. Riddle taking on Wallen. This will be an interesting game because the boys from Wallen, we have not spoken too much about them this year. They are flying. They are going really, really well, especially at home, and I reckon they'll take the game up to the Bombers here.
Yeah, you're not wrong there, mate. And over the past few seasons, they've been very well talked up behind the scenes about their pre-season build-up. They're looking really good. No one really said too much about them this year, which is probably good in the way they are flying under the radar, and they have beaten some really good sides. And to beat Sunbury Kangaroos like they did at home, I think it's going to throw tipping right out of the balance. And I think the Bombers, they're fresh off over a 200-plus point win over Rockbank, but that bye sort of, or the weeks off, sort of makes it pretty interesting. Wouldn't be surprised if the Pies get within a couple of goals, if not win.
And the last game of the round, Romsey taking on Woodend Heskett. Big news for this game, of course, being broadcast on Highlands FM, which is officially back in town. Tell us more.
Yeah, no, we'll be back broadcasting every game, every round throughout the year and heading into towards the final. So we're very much looking forward to an exciting campaign over there. And I think this is going to be a really good game this weekend. Romsey and Woodend, we know how good Woodend Heskett have been over the journey. They've had some injuries, just like Romsey have had as well. But this will be very interesting, given that Woodend Heskett, again, Romsey are another bogey side for them. They just have had trouble getting over them quite often.
And, of course, Woodend Heskett shouldn't have too many fears at Romsey Park, given that 12 months ago it was their home ground for the year.
Yeah, and I think they only had one win on all year as well. So they're vastly different sides since then. Still one of my favourite players to watch, and assuming he gets back into the senior team, will be Blake Levery. He's been outstanding. He played in the under-18s against Diggers a few weeks ago, and it was really good to see him in action. Just from an umpire's perspective, shows really good attitude and demeanour on the field. Very good professionalism for a young kid, and I'm hoping he can play senior footy this weekend and really shows it off in his green boots, because after all, that's the Prez only knows him as the guy with the green boots. Good work, Stu.
I tell you what, if you've got green boots, you've got to be made sure you're noticed and you're playing good footy, because if you get noticed for all the wrong reasons, then you want to get rid of those green boots pretty quickly indeed. That's all the time we've got this week on the RDFL Footy Show. We're taking it on the streets again next week as well, Yeendy. Just continuing this year-long footy trip as it is on the RDFL Footy Show. Going out to Melton Toyota next week. Going to catch up with the great man Nabby. We're going to have a Nabby's Car of the Week. We're going to hear about some of the fantastic initiatives that Melton Toyota have got going this year, and of course we're going to be back having all of the talking points from the last week in the RDFL as well, of course, as next week's games. Looking forward to it already.
Looking forward very much to that week and recapping what is going to be a fantastic week in the RDFNL this weekend.
Thanks for joining us once again on the RDFL Footy Show from an increasingly chilly Bloomdale Oval. Did I tell you what? Blue skies behind us. It is cold here, so we're going to get going. We're going to go and warm up, and we're going to leave you to enjoy another week of RDFL footy here in the Riddle District Football and Netball League. We'll see you next week.